Jane stood on her newly purchased land in Montana, her boots sinking into the soft earth, the rolling hills stretching out like a postcard from a dream. She was 62, retired from teaching, and had saved for years to buy this 10-acre plot for her dream cabin. The for sale sign still swayed in the breeze, a symbol of her victory. But trouble was brewing. Her neighbor Tom, a grizzled cattle rancher with a weathered hat, stormed over one morning, his face red as the clay soil. He claimed half her land was his, part of his family's ranch since the 1800s. This wasn't just a misunderstanding, it was a full-blown land dispute, and it was about to take a turn nobody saw coming. Jane had done her homework. She had the deed, signed and notarized in 2023, clean as a whistle. The surveyors had marked the boundaries, stakes glinting in the sun. Tom, however, wasn't buying it. He waved an old map, yellowed and creased, insisting the boundary line was wrong. His great-grandfather, he said, had grazed cattle on that land long before Jane's realtor was born. The town of Willow Creek, population 1,200, buzzed with gossip. Neighbors whispered over coffee at the diner, some siding with Jane, the newcomer with a kind smile, others backing Tom, the local whose family name was on the town's oldest barn. The dispute escalated fast. Jane hired a lawyer, a sharp woman named Clara who wore blazers and never blinked. Tom brought in his own attorney, a good old boy named Hank who chewed tobacco during meetings. They filed claims, counterclaims, and motions, the courthouse becoming a second home. Surveyors tramped through the fields, their tripods wobbling in the wind. Old deeds were pulled from dusty archives, each side digging for proof. Jane found a record from 1890 showing her plot's boundaries, clear as day. He'd grown up hearing stories of his great-grandfather taming this land, fighting blizzards and bandits to build the ranch. To Tom, Jane was an outsider, a city slicker who didn't understand the stakes. Months passed, court dates piled up. The judge, a tired man named Ellis, sighed every time he saw Jane and Tom's names on the docket. Then came the bombshell. A county clerk, a quiet woman named Marjorie who'd worked in the records office for 30 years, found something nobody expected. She was digitizing old files, her glasses slipping down her nose, when she stumbled on a treaty from 1875. The land, all 10 acres of Jane's plot and part of Tom's ranch, wasn't theirs. It belonged to the Blackfoot tribe, never legally sold or ceded. The treaty was clear, signed by tribal leaders and a long-dead governor, buried under decades of bureaucratic neglect. Jane and Tom sat in the courtroom, stunned. Clara and Hank, for once, had nothing to say. The judge called a recess and the town exploded with chatter. The diner, the bar, the post office, everyone had an opinion. Some said the tribe should get the land back, no question. Others argued Jane and Tom had legal deeds, paid taxes, built lives. The Blackfoot tribe, based nearby, hadn't been involved, but now they were, and they wanted to talk. Jane, shaken but curious, reached out. She drove to the tribal office, a modest building with a flag out front. Tom, reluctant but cornered, came too. They met with Lena, a tribal council member with a calm voice and sharp eyes. Lena explained the treaty, how the land was part of their ancestral territory, never meant to be sold. She wasn't angry, just resolute. The tribe didn't want to fight, but they wanted justice. Jane, who'd spent her career teaching history, felt the weight of it. Tom, who'd always prided himself on his family's legacy, saw his own history unravel. They could have fought on, appealed, dragged it out. But something shifted. Jane suggested a meeting, not in court, but on the land itself. Tom agreed, surprising everyone, including himself. On a crisp fall morning, they stood on the disputed plot, the creek gurgling nearby. Lena brought other tribal members, elders, and youth. Jane spoke first, her voice steady. She'd bought the land in good faith, but she couldn't ignore the treaty. Tom, gruff but honest, admitted he'd been wrong to assume his family's claim was ironclad. Lena proposed something radical, a community garden on the disputed land, managed by the tribe, with Jane and Tom keeping their undisputed plots. The garden would grow food for the reservation and the town, a bridge between them. Jane loved the idea. Tom took longer, his pride bruised, but he saw the sense in it. They shook hands not as enemies but as partners. The town watched, jaws dropping, as the dispute dissolved into something nobody predicted: unity. Jane and Tom, once at war, started working together, planting seeds, hauling soil, laughing over coffee. The garden thrived, corn and squash blooming under the Montana sun. Tribal members joined, kids from the reservation and town playing side by side. The story spread. local news, then national. Jane and Tom, now friends, were interviewed on a podcast, their voices warm with pride. The garden became a symbol, proof that even the ugliest fights could end in something beautiful. Willow Creek, once divided, threw a harvest festival, the first of many. Jane's cabin got built, smaller than planned, but perfect. Tom's ranch stabilized, his herd grazing on what was rightfully his. And the twist, nobody saw it coming. Not the lawyers, not the judge, not the town gossips. A land dispute that could have torn lives apart ended in a garden, a friendship, a community reborn. Like this story, hit that button, follow for more.